Revision is forgiving. I want to share with you a very beautiful and powerful use of Neville Goddard's revision in his lecture, The Pruning Shears of Revision. This story is so incredible, and the transformation happened very quickly within hours. Well, first it was instant, and then within I think a day or two, he began to see so many beautiful changes that he desired for a very long time. So I want to share this success story with you, with his permission, of course. And my intention is for all of you to really start understanding at a deeper level what revision really means, instead of it just being an eraser. Okay, so a lot of people confuse what revision is, and I intend that this video helps you get a lot clearer on how to use it. So welcome, my name is Rose, and welcome to The Rosey Life, where we help you free your mind and follow your heart so you live a life that you love. If you're interested in working one-on-one with me or join the Rosey Life course and community, you can go to RoseyLife.com. All the information's down below. All right, so let's get started. And thank you guys for liking the video and sharing my content with others. I really appreciate you guys, and I love you guys so much. And I love saying that to you guys because it reminds me and to just remind myself to love you guys and just to be so grateful for each and every one of you that come here with your questions and your emails. And I do read them all, and I will get to your emails as well. If you have sent me success stories or questions, I will do my best to answer them. And if you're part of the Rosey Life course and community, I'll show up every Wednesday and I'll answer all your questions live. All right. Okay, so this client is an existing client, and he came to me a couple months ago, and we've been working together on a lot of different things, and he is just manifesting amazing, wonderful things in his life. And the personal transformation that is taking place with him is actually, the biggest, I'll say, transformations that I've visibly seen with him and working with him regularly. And one of the things that he was carrying and he was having a difficult time letting go of is a lot of anger and resentment about a divorce and an ex-wife, and how those things ended. He felt like it didn't end well. There was a lot of just pain and resentment on how things ended with their kids, because they have several kids together, and how those things ended. And he kind of had these stories about his ex-wife that, with the kids teaming up against him and all these things. And he just was really not, he said, Rose, it's just so much, I don't even know where to begin. And you can tell the story was very strong. The feelings that he had for his ex were very strong and not nice. And he just really wanted a wonderful relationship with his children, and to be able to be with them and have a beautiful relationship. And he was not able to do, no matter what he did, no matter how he talked to them, and no matter what he invested in time or anything with him, it didn't seem to work. So I suggested, we were talking about a completely different desire that he is manifesting, but when I noticed this part of him was just really, he was holding on to it, and you can tell it was just domino rippling effect into different parts of his life, not just relationships romantically, but with kids, with business, with himself personally, just with people. And it was just constantly pulling him back to this. And I said, well, are you ready to let that go? And he said, yes. But he said, all I keep thinking about is how things actually, factually, he said, went down with the divorce, with his ex-wife. And he just kept saying that that's truth. That's what actually happened. And he kept saying, because it actually happened. And I said, it only actually happened because you're saying it actually happened. I said, you don't have to, revision is not about deleting what happened. It's about selecting a different outcome, like Dr. Joe Dispenza commonly says in all of his teachings, it's a quantum possibility that he could select a different quantum possibility, meaning a different reality, or Neville Goddard says a different state. Okay, so any of those terms work. So that is what we did together in the session. Is I guided him through revising the ending of this divorce to be something that was amicable, something that was peaceful and happy and loving. It didn't mean that they had to be together, but he wanted it to have a different ending. And I said, we're doing this for you, not for her, not for your kids, but for you to release yourself from this anger, from this feeling of unhappiness, so that you have a different present, because everything is happening from the present. And he kept going back and reinfecting himself, like Neville says, with the story of the past, keeping it alive. And that past kept having ripple effects with his kids and with different relationships in his current present moment. So when you revise something, it not only changes what you perceive as happened, right? Because it's not changing that event. You're selecting a whole different reality or quantum possibility, like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, and you are now going to have a different present outcome. And your thoughts, your feelings, all of those will change automatically when you shift to a new reality. You don't have to revise every conversation. You don't have to revise every single thing that happened. You are just selecting a different outcome that you want to have experience for yourself. So this is what the client did with me. So this is just a short summary of several things that we revised together. And he said, I didn't have a partner, meaning with his ex-wife. He felt like he didn't have a partner, that he felt like he was alone in doing this marriage and raising kids. He just felt like he was alone. He said she did nothing. She put the kids against him. This is what he perceived, what he felt, okay? She didn't want me to be happy. So this is the story that he kept repeating over and over, not only in his mind, but with friends, with family members. This is what he carried, the story he carried around with him about her. And because of that, she had to behave, talk, act, to present, to support his story, to support his belief, and as well as his kids had to support that story and that belief. Okay, so when we sat down and said, let's revise it, and then we ended up having a small visual, right? He did a small imaginal act between he and his ex-wife, okay? And so what he changed all that to was something very simple. We both want each other to be happy. And it ended amicably with her, with the kids, all that. And when we finished that session, he told me he instantly felt lighter. He didn't feel so angry anymore. He let go of feeling that resentment. So after we got off the call, he contacted me a couple of days later. I don't know, it was 2 or 3 days later. I think it was less than 48 hours. But I first want to say that notice that the shift happened within him first. He felt lighter. He felt better. He looked at her differently. He did the transformation within first, without any visible movement. He felt better. He felt different. Then what he experienced in his 3D began to change. This is so important because many people revise and they start looking for the change. If you haven't changed within, if you haven't shifted within, then you haven't shifted. You're not in a new reality. You're not in a new state. The shift happens within, and then you see it on the outside. So what happened in less than 48 hours, his relationships changed, especially with his kids. He said, at all of them, it happened so fast, all of them, his relationships with his kids improved. He went out to dinner, he had conversations with them, he felt better just talking to them, and his relationships already began to change instantly. So he feels lighter, he feels happier, and he remembered his ex differently. This was the part that blew my mind, because when he spoke about her many times, it was always negative. It was always anger, resentment, and he just couldn't see past all the stories that he kept repeating to himself. But when he revised, he said, I actually began to remember that she was a good mom, that she did put effort in as a wife, right? I began to see her as a different person. Why? Because he became different. He was the difference. Remember, he made the change within when he revised this, and then he began to remember her differently. Even he shared that he had a conversation with his son, and he ended the conversation that your mom deserves something good because she's a good person. And he said, I couldn't believe that those words came out of my mouth, because it happened naturally. He didn't force it. He didn't try. He made the revision within. He did the shift within, and all those words, thoughts, and actions came out after he revised and shifted within. Everything was natural. It wasn't forced, okay? I want to share with you a couple of quotes. The first one is from Neville Goddard in the Pruning Shears of Revision in that lecture. You can read it. And it says, he talks about the garden, and the garden is God's mind. So our imagination, our mind is where we plant seeds that you've heard before, and you plant the seeds in the garden of God's mind. And there's many spiritual teachers have used this analogy. Dr. Joseph Murphy has used it. I've heard many different teachers use it, but the mind is the garden of God's mind, meaning what you plant in there is what God is tending to and revealing. And when we plant things that are not of love, right, you are planting those in the garden of God's mind. And so Neville says, for your garden is always projecting itself on the screen of space, meaning your 3D. And you can see what you allow to grow within the garden of God. That's so amazing, because it's saying you can see, meaning take a look at your life, look at your circumstances, look how you feel. Look at, in this case, this client, he was angry, stressed. He kept telling a story of how bad this ex was and how his relationships with his kids are not great and how things are not going good for him. You can see what he continuously was planting in the garden of God's mind, meaning the story, the thoughts, the assumptions he kept making. And when he revised it, he went in the garden of God's mind and changed those things to be lovely, because that is what we're doing. We're going within and we are weeding those things out, because when we are asleep, Neville says, when we're asleep, we're not paying attention. We're just reacting. We're reacting in 3D. We're not tending to the garden of God's mind, and those become weeds. What are those weeds? Those are things that you think negatively about someone. You're thinking that is what sin is, right? We think of negative things that are happening about people. We see them poorly, or like a victim, or sick, or responsible, or they're a narcissist, or they're evil, or even the siren is saying, get that stuff out of the garden of the God's mind, right? So that's what sin is we're seeing people incorrectly, right? A Course in Miracles says it does. This is what the Course in Miracles says about forgiveness. It says it does not pardon sin. So when you forgive, it's not to pardon sins. You're not saying, I forgive you. I forgive you, right? It's not like you're this big person, you saying, fine, I'm so powerful, I'm going to go ahead and forgive you. I forgive you for all the bad things that you've done to me. No. Course in Miracles say it does not pardon sins. It sees there was no sin to begin with. It does not pardon sin. So forgiveness or revision, it's not you pardoning, letting someone off the hook for doing something. You're not letting them off, right? And you're just like, well, they got away with doing that to me. No, it's not. You're not pardoning them. You're seeing that there was never any sin to begin with. You're seeing them with righteous vision. In other words, you're seeing them with the eyes of God, with love. What you're allowing to grow in the garden of God's mind is love. is perfection. It is your perception. So when you are seeing people, when you judge them, when you say they're bad or they're hurting you or they did something, right? You are not seeing them with the eyes of God, with love. That is who you are, your perfection. So you go within, you pull those weeds out, all those sinful thoughts, right? Meaning you see people, you judge them, you see them as bad, you blame them, you look for their flaws, you condemn them, you complain about them, all that stuff, right? You accuse them of hurting you, of screwing you over, of scamming you, or all of those things, right? That is not of love. And that is our job. And Neville says our purpose is to maintain the garden of God in that it aligns with love. So when we look at people from our reality, from our perception, and we look out into our world, our 3D reality, look around you, scan it, and how do you know what you're thinking? Because it's playing out for you. How you feel, what you're thinking about, what your interactions are with people, it's showing you what you have going on within. You can't, it's impossible for you to say, oh, I only have beautiful thoughts, and then turn around and complain that people are jerks, or that you can't stand people, or that people are ripping you off, or that everything's not going your way. No, everything that you're experiencing is a reflection, like Neville says, it's a projection of what you've been planning in the mind of God, in that garden of God's mind. It is only you. So when you use revision, for example, that is what you're doing. You are choosing a different reality, an alternative state that you desire have happened, no matter what it is, and you stick with that new story regardless of what you see, regardless of the evidence, regardless if you think it really happened, that it's factual, but it really did happen, all of that stuff. It's only really did happen because you're saying it really did happen, because nothing is factual, nothing is final over until you decide. You decide what is final. You decide what the outcome. You decide how it turned out. And your story trumps it all, because you are the great I am. And what you choose is final. All right, my loves, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you again for liking the video and for subscribing to The Rosey Life and for helping the channel grow. I just love it. It's so exciting, all right? And I'm so excited to go on this ride with all of you as well. And I appreciate you guys so, so much. And like always, you're freaking amazing. See you soon. Bye.